Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. After the appalling sight of 150,000 or so morons, munters and political miscreants wandering the streets of London shouting racist nonsense and misinformed mamble last weekend, I thought it was time we asked, what actually are Labour doing about immigration? And should we be happy or angry about it? Many times in the last week or so, I've come across people with AI-generated pictures of lions and Union Jacks as their profile pictures, crying online about being called far-right or labelled as racist for supporting Tommy Robinson or Nigel Farage or Donald Trump. Invariably, I've asked them to define what they actually think the far-right is, because they don't really seem to understand what they're standing behind in a lot of cases. Your racist granddad might remember a rose-tinted version of 1955 where there were no black people and think that hanging a Union Jack that he got from Temu on the front gate is somehow patriotic. But he seems to have forgotten what patriotism is. And it isn't flag-shagging bullshit and hating Muslims because Tommy Robinson told you to. The Raise the Colours episode isn't patriotism, it's nationalism, and there's a big difference. But we're often told these people have legitimate concerns, and in some cases, I kind of agree. There is certainly a conversation to be had, but what bothers me is that a lot of these people are mostly misinformed and ignoring anything that is actually being done to try and make a difference by Labour. Well, I've done a little bit of the research that the reform regressives either refuse to do or are too fucking stubborn to do. And the picture is far from as bleak as Tommy would have you believe. I'll share my findings with you right after this. 'Tis Power to the People with Graeme Pryce, where sometimes he's naughty or nice. If you like the vibe, hit like and subscribe. But don't hit the like button twice. Thank you. Right, I have done some research, but let's just address something I'm hearing a lot and seeing various responses to first. And it's the claim that Labour have returned 35,000 illegal immigrants since taking office already. That's a big number. You think the flag-waving fannies and Nigel-loving nonces would be over the moon about that, wouldn't you? Well, they're not, because they're largely entirely unaware of it. And even when they are made aware of it, they just refuse to believe it, or, they come back with some sort of what they think is a counter-argument. It's just a lie from Labour. Or, well, the left said it, so it's probably not true. Or, well, it would be 70,000 if Nigel was Prime Minister. It isn't a lie. It is true. And Nigel is a fucking grifter with no intention of deporting 70,000 people. But it is more nuanced than it seems at first. And the basic brain-dead bellend that follows Tommy Robinson or Nigel Farage doesn't do nuance, do they? Somebody I told about the 35,000 returned immigrants on Facebook came back with an interesting point though. He said, most of those were voluntary returns. So I went away with that in mind, did a little bit of research. It is true that 35,000 people with no right to be in the UK have been returned to their home country since Labour took office. That is undisputable, whether Tommy's titheads and Nigel's numpties like it or not. I do think there is some justification in questioning that number though. I've carefully consulted with a few organisations like Full Fact and Grounded News and Migration Observatory from Oxford University. And it is true that 17,000 of those returned voluntarily. But that's not most. That's 17,000 out of 35. So the person who told me it was most have returned voluntarily was wrong. But let's remember something here as well. Those people volunteered to return because a Labour government compelled them to do so and facilitated the ability to do so. The Tories could have done that, but they chose not to. Why do you think that is? I personally don't care whether somebody chooses to leave voluntarily or is removed in cuffs and chains. The end result is the same. It has to be worth mentioning that in their last term between 2019 and 2024, the Tories managed to return 8,000 people. And that includes people who left voluntarily. 35,000 versus 8,000 is a battle that Labour is certainly winning. So how do you feel about that? Should Labour be excluding the figures of those who return voluntarily alongside those who were forcibly deported or not? It's a valid question, and it's one that I'm quite interested in your opinions on. But what else have Labour done? And has it began to make the sort of difference that would be noticed by the goits, gimboids and gooners that watch GBBs? I'm not going to go into this one in, one out policy thing because that's going to take years to have any effect. But let's have a look at some of the pledges that Labour made and see if they've fulfilled any of them yet. One pledge was to bring down net migration. Regardless of what Tommy says, the vast majority of immigration into the UK does not come from Mohammed arriving in a dinghy at Dover Beach. That's actually a tiny amount, and most arrive here legally with a visa. This number has fallen significantly since Labour took office. But as much as I hate to admit it, some of that can be attributed to changes made by the Tories in their last term regarding who is and who isn't issued with visas. Nevertheless, all migration, not just those arriving on boats, has fallen by 52%. I wonder how many swastika tattooed shitheads who were out in London a couple of weekends ago are actually aware of that. Not many. Another pledge was reducing small boat arrivals by cracking down on people smuggling networks. Well, that's a long-term solution, so we shouldn't expect immediate results. But the results we've got so far aren't exactly inspiring either. The largest number of arrivals by small boat was in 2022, while the Tories were still in office. But the overall figure has risen by 34% since Labour took office. It's not entirely their fault. It's not even particularly their fault. It's an ever-shifting number, and Labour have better intentions than the Tories do about it. But I don't want to be accused of bias, so it would be remiss of me not to mention it. Labour have implemented a far more sensible, coherent and well-staffed border force, though, so we should begin to see some difference as a result of this pledge long before the next general election. I'm far from certain it'll be soon enough, though. And even if it is, will Nigel's numpties and Tommy's titheads even know or care? Labour pledged to clear the asylum backlog. Well, this one is quite tricky for them because the Tories' scorched earth policies in their last term were deliberately designed to make this difficult. The numbers aren't great, but they are going in the right way. The backlog of asylum seekers on Home Office records has fallen by 8% since Labour took office. That isn't exactly a high number, is it? It is a number that's going in the right direction, though, and it should increase year on year. Labour have added staff to the Home Office that were cut returned staff that were cut during the Tories' years, and particularly during George Gideon Osborne's austerity years. There's obviously more that can be done, but it is a decrease, and it's also true that under a Labour government, asylum claims are being checked more thoroughly and asylum seekers are spending less time languishing in ex-hotel dormitories than they were when the Conservatives were in office. Though there has been a rise in people seeking to appeal their decision on their asylum status, and those people are granted leave to remain in the country as the process takes place. So you've got to watch for a little bit of number fiddling could be going on there. Another pledge was to increase returns of people who have been found to have no right to be here. Well, we've touched on this already and mentioned the 35,000 number, haven't we? Unlike Nigel Farage or Tommy Robinson, though, figures and statistics don't lie. And it is true that returns have risen by 25% so far this year. That's the highest number since 2017 of people being returned. So if we actually decide to get our information from trusted sources instead of sensationalist lies and twisted statistics from the Daily Mail and the Telegraph or GBBs, we can see that the picture is nowhere near as bleak as Tommy and the titheads want you to believe. Regardless of whether you were furious that you heard somebody brown speak a different language in the self-service queue at Asda, or whether you were annoyed because you walked past 2 black people when you were out with your dog today, the numbers are actually looking quite good. Labour are far from perfect. But in this area, they're actually making some progress and performing better than the Tories did in any single year that they were in office. And that's in the first year. So in conclusion, Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson are trying to scare you with absolute bollocks and barefaced lies about immigration. Has it worked? Are you sitting there more furious about the 3% of immigrants that arrive in small boats than you are about literally anything else? Have they sold you a pocket full of rage and a bucket full of lies? Some of us know the answer to that. The guys with swastika tattoos hanging flags they bought from Amazon on the local lampposts, they don't know they've been sold a load of nasty populist bullshit though. They think they're being patriots. And that was why I subtitled my last video with the words, "The Misinformed March with Tommy." Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. This one really is an example of the battle against bullshit, isn't it? The Reform voters and Tommy's titheads are drowning in a sea of bullshit, and when they put their hands up to be rescued, it's the far right that are reaching out to grasp their sweaty palms. It should be me and you and a decent left-wing Labour Party. But I guarantee that GBBs, haven't reported on any of the things that I've talked about in this video. Not fairly, anyway, if at all. Our greatest enemy, it isn't the far right. It's the right-wing media and the far-right figures that understand social media better than Keir Starmer and Labour understand anything, apparently. The unregulated nature of social media allows them to fill the heads of the misinformed with sheer nonsense and racist propaganda daily. But it also allows people like me and you to have our say. And it's very important that we do so. Don't sit there doom scrolling on Facebook or arguing with twats on Twitter. Start a channel, talk to people, let them know what far right really means. Because a lot of them genuinely don't know, and they think what is happening in this country is normal and righteous because Nigel said so. Anyway, if you'd like to contribute to the never-ending battle against bullshit, you can find my links to PayPal, Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffee page, Avoiding London Like the Plague, in the description box. And the join button for memberships is as always, below. Now that isn't all, I have to say, but it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-da! Up there, yes, it's up there. Now it's down there. What are you going to do about it being over there? Oh my God, what are you going to do now that it's over there and there and there? Oh jeez, oh bloody hell, Alan, what a drama.